Today's lesson is Egg Tarts Around the World. Hello, everyone. I'm Mike.
And I'm Roger, and today we're going to talk about food. We're going to talk about some sweet desserts today, some kind of pastry that is popular all over the world. And specifically, we're talking about egg tarts, and of course they exist in different forms in different parts of the world. I know here in Taiwan, the Portuguese egg tarts are pretty popular. Wasn't there a big fad for them about 10, 15 years ago or so?
I was just thinking of that when they were selling egg tarts at the place I used to get my pictures developed, and the hairdresser and the fruit shop, and everyone was selling egg tarts. Absolutely. But I'd never had one before I came to Taiwan, and during that craze, I think it was probably around that time I had my first one, and then I realized why everyone had gone nuts for them, because they're super delicious.
They are very tasty, and of course that's just one variety of egg tart. There are different ones in different parts of the world. So let's introduce this topic to you right now. Let's listen to the first paragraph, and then we'll come back to discuss it.
Egg tarts around the world. The egg tart is one of the world's most popular pastries. No matter where you travel around the globe, you will likely come across some variety of this sweet delight.
大家好，第一部分介绍名词 pastry， 它的意思是油酥糕点或是油酥点心。例如 That bakery is known for its fruit pastries, which are always a hit with customers. 那家面包店以水果酥饼闻名，那些酥饼总是很受顾客喜爱。或者 We had black coffee and apple pastries for breakfast this morning. 今天的早餐我们享用了黑咖啡和苹果油酥点心。下一个看到名词Globe 表示地球、世界，也可以是地球仪的意思。例如 There are many different styles of cooking around the globe. 全球各地有许多不同的料理风格。或是 This song is popular around the globe. 这首歌在世界各地都很受欢迎。再来介绍片语 come across 表示偶然碰到或是无意间遇见。可以说 I came across an old photo album while cleaning the attic. 我在清理阁楼时偶然发现了一本旧相册。又或者说 I came across a big parade on my way home. 我在回家的路上无意间遇到一场大游行。另外补充一个同义片语 run across， 造个例句 I ran across a jacket at the store. It would look great on you. 我在店里偶然发现一件很适合你穿的夹克。或是 I ran across an old friend from high school last week. 我上周巧遇一位高中老友。后面看到名词 delight 表示乐事或是令人愉悦的人或事物。例如 The smell and taste of the chocolate cake was a delight. 巧克力蛋糕的香味和味道令人感到愉悦。也可以说 The author's new book is a delight to read. 这位作者的新书读起来令人愉悦。
Okay, so again, we're talking about egg tarts around the world. We know what an egg is, but how would you define the word tart?
A tart is basically a tiny little pie. I always think of it as a tiny little personal pie. So a tart will be made of many of the things that a pie might be made of. Most importantly, you will have a pastry crust or a pastry shell, and this will basically serve as sort of the container of everything that goes into the tart in the same way that the larger pastry shell or crust what contains your pie ingredients. And often, like a pie, an egg tart, or a tart, I should say, will be made mainly with a sort of fruit kind of filling. You might get some fruit, you might sort of cook it down a little bit, make it much sweeter, and then fill the pie or the tart. So in the same way that a pie will be larger, more like a pizza, and you'll have a slice or a piece of it, an egg tart is a much smaller one, more like a cupcake size, and you will be able to have your own individual little form of this pie-type dessert.
Indeed. Now, the egg tart is one of the world's most popular pastries. Now, if you're talking about baked goods that you can get at a bakery, those are referred to as pastries because I think it's referring to the actual dough. It's kind of sticky. It's kind of like a paste. and they form that into shapes, and they stick it in the oven, and then they bake in the oven, and then you get different kinds of pastries like long johns or croissants or whatever.
Things like that. Danish.
Baguettes, I guess those would be also pastries. So in this particular case, it is a popular pastry around the world. But no matter where you travel around the globe, you will likely come across some variety of this sweet delight. So it doesn't really matter where you travel. If you go to Japan, Hong Kong, India, Nigeria, or whatever, you're probably going to come across one form of egg tart in those different countries. It is a sweet delight. So you could travel the globe, you could travel around the world, and then you'll come across, or you will encounter, you will see, you'll find this sweet delight. And a delight, of course, is something that delights you. It is a treat. It is very tasty, and it makes you feel oh so happy when you eat it.
Absolutely. A delight can be anything that sort of entertains and gives you pleasure. Seeing your friends might be a delight, or being out in the park and seeing a lovely rainbow after a rainstorm. That might be a delight as well. Here, it's a sweet delight. It's something that you eat. It's a little bit guilty, right? You don't want to have too many of these. You know they're very sweet. You know they're full of sugar. But yes, they are definitely delightful. They will bring you delight, and they're very enjoyable. And people do this around the globe. The globe is that ball-shaped world that we think of as we think of the world, the planet hanging there in space. Globe can also be that sort of 3D map representation of the world on a ball type or on a sphere type object that you might find in a library or in a school or something like that. Or maybe you have a globe sitting on your desk. It represents the world. So all around the world, people love egg tarts. And let's find out why in the second part of the article. It's not hard to understand why egg tarts are a favorite treat. The tart's creamy, sweet filling combines perfectly with its tasty shell. This is true of all egg tarts, whether they're served as part of an English afternoon tea or purchased from a French cake shop, a vendor in Macau, or a bakery in Taiwan. Perhaps the most famous type of egg tart is the Portuguese pastel de nata, cream pastry, which was created sometime before the 18th century. Monks at the Geronimos monastery came up with the recipe for the snack to use up egg yolks that would otherwise have gone to waste. Later, the owners of a nearby sugar factory bought the monks' secret recipe, and the original recipe tarts can still be bought at the factory today.
第二部分看到名词 vendor， 它的意思是小贩或是摊贩。例如 I bought some snacks from a street vendor. 我在路边摊买了一些点心。再看一个例子 The vendor sells fresh orange juice. 那个摊贩有卖新鲜的柳橙汁。下一个介绍片语 come up with， 指的是想出或是提出。举例来说 Shelley needs to come up with a good idea for her science project. Shelley 需要为她的科学研究项目想出一个好点子。或是 The artist came up with the perfect design for my book cover. 这位艺术家替我的书封想出了完美的设计。
Okay, so the second part of our article today begins by saying, it's not hard to understand why egg tarts are a favorite treat. So it's not hard to understand, or it's easy to understand why they are a favorite for many people, okay? Of course, it's a treat. It's not something you're going to have as a main meal. It's just something that's going to be a snack or something. Maybe you could have it during afternoon tea or something like that, or for dessert or whatever. But yeah, it's pretty easy to understand why so many people like egg tarts.
And let's find out why. It says the tart's creamy, sweet filling combines perfectly with its tasty shell. So there you go. That could describe many different types of tarts, but of course an egg tart has especially creamy, sweet filling. Something's creamy, there's a lot of cream in it. There's a lot of fat in it as well, of course. So things that have a lot of butter or cream or things like that, we can often describe them as creamy. If you like your coffee to be creamy, maybe you put in more cream than most people would. And ice cream, of course. We think of ice cream as being creamy. On your tongue, you can kind of feel that milk fat, that cream in there, and it makes it especially enjoyable. And there's a sweet filling. So yeah, when we talk talk about what you put into a pie, that is the filling of the pie. Okay, so a tart might just have the filling. If you're making a more traditional pie like an apple pie, you might put the filling in the shell or in the crust of the pie and then cover it with more pastry or something, but the filling will be what is in the pie. So basically, if someone says, what kind of pie is it? It's a lemon meringue pie, it's a peach pie, it's an apple pie, it's a cherry pie. Those fruits are describing the filling. So it will be mainly fruit combined with some sugar, and that's what you put in the pie. That's what gives it its flavor and its name, because the rest of the pie will be the tasty shell or the crust, the kind of body of the pie, what holds the filling, what contains the filling, what stops the filling from just leaking all over the place inside the oven. That is the shell or the crust or the pastry part, the dough part of the pie. It says this is true of all egg tarts, whether they're served as part of an English afternoon tea or purchased from a French cake shop, a vendor in Macau, or a bakery in Taiwan. So, from those different geographic locations, we get the idea that these are also different styles of egg tarts, but no matter where they come from, no matter the style that they're made and exactly what is in the filling, they are all wonderfully tasty. They all have this sweet, creamy filling, this tasty shell. But we also get a bit of a preview into the different styles. So you can have one that comes with your English afternoon tea, so that might be the more English style, or maybe you buy or purchase one from a French cake shop. So the French version and the English version might have some small differences or maybe big differences, or a vendor in Macau or a bakery in Taiwan. This is basically just kind of saying no matter where you buy it, and you can find local versions in these different places, you can purchase it in France or you can buy it in France, and someone is selling them. They're a salesperson or someone who makes them in Macau. A vendor is basically just someone who sells products to customers who want them, to the public who wants them, or a bakery in Taiwan where, of course, they will make their own, maybe with their own special house recipe.
Right, so this, of course, is the basic composition of egg tarts. There are different kinds of tarts out there, but if we're talking about egg tarts, then yes, you need to have that creamy sweet filling and that tasty shell or that tasty crust. But of course, you can change it a little bit depending on where you are. So again, we've got different examples here. You can have it with English afternoon tea. You can get it at a French cake shop or from somebody selling them in Macau, which is a former colony of Portugal over there by Hong Kong. I've been there a couple of times. It's pretty cool. But
Alman, right?
Alman in Chinese, indeed.
Yeah.
And of course, it's known for its casinos there.
Right.
I did not go there to gamble, though. I looked at the old colonial architecture. But in any case here, yes, vendors in Macau will be selling this. And then you're going to find them, of course, right here in Taiwan in bakeries. And, of course, there are different varieties of those, again, in Taiwan and in other places. I wonder what Russian egg tarts taste like. But in any case, let's move on now to the next paragraph. It says, perhaps the most famous type of egg tart is the Portuguese pastel de nata, which means cream pastry, which was created sometime before the 18th century. And that, of course, was the egg tart that everybody went nuts for in Taiwan here about 15 or 20 years ago. There was a big craze for egg tarts here. The Portuguese variety, and in Portuguese, it is called pastel de nata. It means cream pastry. And they created it quite some time ago before the 18th century, before the 1700s.
Very interesting. So back, I guess, in the late 1600s or something like that. This is a pastry that's been around, 400 years or something. And actually, yeah, that's an interesting question. Where did it come from exactly? What happened? It says monks at the Jeronimos Monastery came up with the recipe for the snack to use up egg yolks that would otherwise have gone to waste. Wow, what a great story. So they did this just to avoid throwing more stuff in the garbage. It was a very good way to reduce, reuse, and recycle back then in the late 1600s. These were monks doing this, so these are holy people, holy brothers, they're sometimes called, men who dedicate their lives to Jesus in service of the community. They live together in a monastery, that is basically a religious facility that also serves as the home of monks, where they will focus on religious studies, helping people in the community, maybe with sort of medical facilities as well, and also study, and also quite famous actually for food preparation in many cases. I think the monasteries of Belgium were some of the first places to brew beer in Europe hundreds of years ago, and a lot of monasteries today support themselves by making beer, making cheese, making different types of food products like that. So these monks were living there, and they came came up with the idea. When you come up with something, it's like you invent something or you create something. You're the person who first did it in some kind of way. So they came up, or they invented this recipe for the snack to use up egg yolks that would otherwise have gone to waste. So they were preparing food. I guess they were preparing something kind of light. They were using the white of the egg, also known as the albumin of the egg, but not the yolk, not the yellow part of the egg that, of course, has a bit more fat and cholesterol in it. Sometimes if people are on diets, they'll have an egg white omelet instead of the yolk, the yellow part. So apparently they were just going to throw these yolks away. They didn't use it to prepare whatever other food they were making. So otherwise, these yolks would have gone to waste if they hadn't invented a recipe that used a lot of the egg yolks up. Otherwise means kind of on the other hand, if the situation had been different or if the situation changes. Someone might say, what are your plans for the weekend? Well, I plan to go to the beach with my friends, but if it rains, otherwise we'll stay home and watch Netflix or something like that. In the other case, or if the situation is different. And in this case, if they hadn't come up with a recipe, these egg yolks would have gone to waste. Yeah, they would have ended up in the garbage, ended up being thrown away.
Yeah, they were using the egg whites for some reason, and they thought they should just throw the yolks away, the yellow part, but they thought, hey, let's take those egg yolks and make them into something special. So that's where they got the idea that they came up with. They came up with this recipe for this snack using those egg yolks. Later, the owners of a nearby sugar factory bought the monk's secret recipe, and the original recipe tarts can still be bought at the factory today. So we got some people working at a sugar factory very close to the monastery. They probably smelled something in the wind. Ooh, that tastes very good. That smells really cool. What is that? And they talked to the monks, and the monks said, well, it's our recipe, but it's a secret recipe. And then the people at the sugar factory said, well, we'll buy it from you. We'll offer you a price. And I guess they sold it to the sugar factory, and now the factory is still producing those egg tarts. And if you're in this part of the world, you can probably check some out yourself. Okay, that brings us to the end of the second part of our lesson for today. Let's wrap things up now in the third part. It's kind of short, but let's listen anyway.
Thanks to global trade, the egg tart soon made its way to Asia. These days, Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan all have their own varieties.
第三部分看到片语 make one's way 表示前进或是走向，可以说 The hikers slowly made their way along the narrow path. 登山客慢慢沿着狭窄的小径前进。最后一个例子 We need to make our way to the airport before the traffic gets worse. 我们必须赶在塞车之前前往机场。
Okay, so here it says, thanks to global trade, the egg tart soon made its way to Asia. So we've got global trade, which means countries are trading goods and services with each other, and they're shipping them on container ships and various other vessels all around the world. So, of course, the egg tart was in Portugal there, and then they sent it out by ship to other parts. Maybe Portugal had colonies in different parts of the world. Maybe they did send it off to Macau there. The recipe ended up in Macau, and then it probably spread over to Hong Kong or whatever. That's all due to global trade. It made its way to Asia. It went in the direction of Asia. It came to Asia.
Exactly right. The Portuguese were some of the first big explorers. Of course, even before the British Empire and the French and things like that, the Portuguese had a mighty overseas empire. And yes, Macau, of course, they settled here in Taiwan at different times. Japan as well. I think they were one of the first European powers to sort of have relations, trade relations with the Empire of Japan back at that time. So very global. And of course, as these people go and bring their products and stuff to trade, they also bring their traditions and food and religion with them as well. So that's why, of course, we can find wonderful egg tarts everywhere from Portugal to Macau to Brazil, so all over the place. And it says, yes, these days Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan all have their own varieties. So they have their own sort of special local version of the Portuguese egg tart in the same way that pizza might have been invented in Rome or Naples, but now we have New York pizza pizza, we have Chicago pizza, we have different varieties or different styles of this food in many other parts of the world. So there you go, Portuguese egg tarts. For the beginning part of our article, it sounds pretty good, and I'm already quite hungry, and tomorrow we will be having much more about this delicious dessert, but for now, I think it's time to go over to our Chinese teacher, Hanny.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。课文第3部分的第一句写到 Thanks to global trade, the egg tart soon made its way to Asia. 由于全球贸易，蛋挞很快就传入亚洲。那这边有2个重点。首先，片语介系词 thanks to 表示由于、因为，后面可以接人或事物。那它的意思就跟 because of 很接近。不过 thanks to 常常会用在正面的原因，可以表达出幸亏怎么样、多亏怎么样的语义。例如 Thanks to your help, I was able to solve the problem successfully. 多亏了你的帮忙，我才能顺利解决问题。那另外 thanks to 有时也会用反讽的语气来表达归咎的原因，像是 Thanks to you, we now have to do it all over again. 因为你，我们现在又必须重来一遍了啦。好，那么第2个重点是 make one's way 是表达前进、走向，后面可以接 to 加名词。就像课文里面它是用 made its way to Asia 来表达传入亚洲的语义。我们这边也来补充几个跟 way 相关的片语。第一个是 find one's way， 后面可以接 to 或 into 加名词，这是表达找到去什么什么的路，得以到达进入。那它也可以用来比喻经过一番波折才获得某种结果。我们造2个例句。They finally found their way to the beach. 他们最后终于找到去海滩的路。The singer has found his way into the hearts of fans around the world. 那位歌手让全世界各地的粉丝心醉神迷。好，那第2个补充的片语是 come one's way。 这个片语字面上的意思是朝着某人的方向移动，意思就是某事物降临在某人身上，或者是某人遇到什么什么。那通常是指遇到某个机会啊，或某件事，像 good luck will come your way， 好运会降临在你身上。第3个补充的片语是 go one's way， 这是表达按照某人的意愿、心意。例如 in life,Things won't always go your way. 在生活中，事情不会总是如你所愿。那么第4个补充的片语是 have one's way， 这是表达如某人所愿，某人得偿所望。那么 way 在这里它是指意愿、愿望。有一个常见的用法是 have it your way， 表示照你的方法去做。那它带有随你便的意思。像我们如果跟人家意见不合啊，懒得再争下去的时候，你就可以说 All right, have it your way， 好吧，随你便。第5个补充的片语 claw one's way， C-L-A-W claw 当动词，它表示用爪子抓，用力的抓住。那么 claw one's way 字面意思是抓住东西，费力的前进，而引申的意思就是指辛苦努力的前进，奋力的前进。好，那么以上今天重点整理，我们回顾今天单词吧。
Pastry. I like to enjoy a warm pastry with my coffee in the morning. Globe.Climate change is affecting people around the globe. Delight. One of the delights of traveling is trying new food in different countries. Purchase. You can purchase tickets for the show online or at the entrance. Vendor. There's a street vendor near my apartment who sells fresh fruit every morning. Otherwise. The alert system detects risks that might otherwise be overlooked.
Well, that brings us to the end of another edition of our program, and please make sure you join us again next time. From all of us here, I am Roger.
I am Mike.
See you next time.